Sup homies, it's been a while since I've done a video. I don't know, I've been slowing down on the video output lately. Hopefully once things get more or less time consuming, I'll put out more videos. Anyway, this video is on a topic that I recently discussed with some people on Stickam, and that's scientism. Now I'm going to read off real quick what it says for scientism on Wikipedia, because I think their brief, immediate description is a pretty accurate description of what I use the term to mean. The term scientism is used to describe the view that natural science has authority over all other interpretations of life, such as philosophical, religious, mythical, spiritual, or humanistic explanations, and over other fields of inquiry, such as the social sciences. So basically, scientism is an act of context dropping. It's taking the principles of science, not just the principles of logic and rational thinking, which a lot of people conflate with science, but the actual principles of scientific method, and applying them outside of their context. The scientific method, while very useful, is a very specific form of knowledge acquisition that applies to a very specific context. The scientific method is useful for gaining information about hard empirical reality outside of, our own, necessarily outside of our own opinions and whatnot. The idea is that you can use the scientific method to obtain facts about how the universe works. But let me give a couple examples to show what I mean by scientism. One example I see is among like white supremacists and whatnot, who will argue that basically a deterministic viewpoint that genetics and whatnot is what's responsible for different cultures coming about, like white culture is because of white people and things like that. Now this is basically pseudoscience, but the idea is scientist in nature, because it involves claiming that their viewpoint is scientifically grounded, and to go against it is to go against science. Another example I saw recently is Daniel Dennett. I haven't read enough on this guy yet, although I get the feeling I'm not going to like him very much. But his viewpoint regarding qualia, which is that they don't exist, and therefore there is no problem of qualia. Now, for those who don't know, qualia would be, like if you look at the color red, your experience of seeing the color red would be a qualia. For example, when I look at red, I experience seeing the color red, whereas my webcam, when it receives red-colored light, doesn't experience seeing the color red, because it's just a camera. It's not conscious. Now, to argue, now Mr. Dennett basically argues that qualia don't exist because he defines it in a way that makes it incoherent. I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious that we experience things, so to deny that is pretty silly. And really, basically what he's trying to do, from what I gather, from what I have read about him, is he's trying to reduce the whole of, philosophy of mind down to a physical science, which is another example of what scientism is, an attempt to take something where logic and reason apply, but not necessarily the scientific method, and try to force it into the context that the scientific method was intended for. So you take a question like qualia, that while it can be analyzed through reason, cannot be analyzed through the scientific method, and just say, well, that problem doesn't exist, therefore we can continue to use the scientific method to solve this problem. Essentially, scientism is almost a deification of the scientific method as being the only source or the only rational approach to knowledge acquisition. And oftentimes I think it involves the conflation of the scientific method with logic and reason as such. Like they mix it all together. So if you're going against the scientific method, you're going against reason and logic, even though there may be context in which logic and reason apply, but the specifics of the scientific method wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Another example would be if someone were to reject the whole concept of ethics simply because there is nothing in reality itself that just automatically says you should do X and Y and Z. Basically, the idea would be, well, the scientific method can't analyze ethical claims, therefore they don't exist. Like, scientism almost seems to take any problem that can't be solved with the scientific method and just pretends like it's not there. Like, it just finds some loophole or something to say, well, this isn't a problem, this is not something worth considering, it's gone. I don't know, this isn't the most coherent video I've done. I probably should have scripted this out a little better. But I don't like this concept. I do think that, especially among, like, if you look at, like, the atheists on YouTube, a lot of them are guilty of this belief that, you know, there is no need for abstract or philosophical examination of problems, and that the scientific method is the end-all, be-all knowledge acquisition device. That's basically the gist of this video. I'll probably try to do another video tomorrow, since I've been slacking a little bit. Video on property rights and abandonment and stuff like that.